I'm going to talk about something that someone texted me on earlier, which was, why aren't you talking about the Paul Dacre story? Well, the Paul Dacre story is that the government is thinking of making him the head of Ofcom, the Broadcasting Commission, and also Charles Moore, the former editor of the Daily Telegraph, is being put in to be the chairman of the BBC. Both of these posts, of course, are given by the government. So Paul Dacre, the ex-editor of the Daily Mail, fairly controversial figure, is tipped to take over the broadcast regulator Ofcom. Martin Campbell joins us now. Martin is a media advisor, former chief advisor to Ofcom. Good evening, Martin.
Evening, Ian. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Paul Dacre. Tell us a little bit about Paul Dacre. Why is he such a controversial figure?
Well, you've only got to ask why the Daily Mail was a controversial newspaper, and I think you found your answer there as to why Paul Dacre is controversial. Personally, I think it's a pretty good call by Boris Johnson for someone like Paul Dacre to go to Ofcom. I've heard the criticisms that, well, he's not a broadcaster. Well, I was the exception at Ofcom as a broadcaster. It's not full of broadcasters. It's a communications regulator, and there's not many people better at communicating than Paul Dacre's Daily Mail. So, because they also did post office and telecoms and so on. But obviously, the big focus is on the BBC and how he might handle that. But I mean, he's been around for years. He worries about the likes of Google and Facebook, which would make him ideal for Ofcom. And by all accounts, he believes that the BBC should be saved from itself. Well, yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, I think it's controversial, but I think it's an inspired choice.
Why? If he's an enemy, or at least he's suspicious of social media and the giant tech companies in the US like Facebook, why is that important as the head of Ofcom?
Well, it's important mainly because Ofcom is about to take over. We know you can't regulate the internet, but effectively Ofcom is taking over, overseeing the internet on a far more formal basis than it has before. And Facebook and Google face an awful lot of criticism for either acting too hastily in some cases, not hastily enough in other cases. So it needs scrutiny. So I think somebody with Dacre's experience would be ideal for that. And clearly he knows that sort of world, and that's important.
The world of the Daily Mail editorship and being the head of Ofcom would, I imagine, I don't know, I've worked for neither, but I assume would be very different in that he was fairly autonomous. He was very much in control of the newspaper and its editorial comment. Is it more democratic in Ofcom?
That's a very good question, Ian, and I don't want to sound patronising. That is an excellent question because Ofcom is effectively what you would call a quango. And when David Cameron came to power, he said Ofcom would be on the top of the bonfire of quangos. Well, of course, he then found out soon that he needed somebody between all the problems that TV throw up and the government. And so he actually needed Ofcom. So the bonfire of quangos was very quickly put out. So there's always been that political thing there. It's worried me in the past that if you work at Ofcom, you never quite know whether you're working independently or whether you're working with one eye on what the Department of Culture might want. It is a very tricky balance. And sometimes it gets pushed over a bit because I remember when Theresa May was having pressure put on her over Russia Today, the TV channel. And she said in the comments, she stood up and said, I have told Ofcom to investigate Russia Today. Well, she shouldn't really be in a position to tell Ofcom to do that. Ofcom should be working out whether Russia Today was something that should be investigated. But Theresa May stood up and said that. So that whole the government Ofcom quango relationship is a very, very opaque one.
Why does Ofcom investigate if there's literally just one complaint?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. It's always been the case. The ITC before it and the Radio Authority before it. In actual fact, there doesn't even have to be one complaint. When I was at Ofcom, I heard Chris Evans when he was working, I think, for Virgin then, was saying how he supported Ken Livingstone and was going to send him some money. Well, that is a complete no-no in broadcasting rules. And so I set things in motion from then without the need for a complaint. You really have to have that as a one complaint move, because it doesn't really take up any more time to do that. Very often you will have complaints come in, whether it's something like Britain's Got Talent, somebody says something that gets misconstrued and it gets in the daily papers and people complain not having heard it. You find you've got 3,000 complaints from people who didn't even hear it in the first place. So having one complaint is not a bad thing. It's not that silly.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin. That was Martin Campbell, who is a media advisor and a former chief advisor to Ofcom.